Well, good evening. It's the 28th of April. That would make it a Sunday, 2019. Uh, this is journal number 32 on post-transplant T plus 26. Keep looking over to make sure I get it right. so we'll do that. One of the things that happens to you when you start down this road towards a transplant, because while so much of it is known, there's an awful lot of it that's unknown because nobody can be 100% sure how your body's going to react to whatever's going on throughout the process. Is the immutability of change, more or less. When I was doing seminars all over the country, I had a favorite line in there that said that only two organisms on the planet embraced change. Uh, One was stockbroker, because they make money either way, and the other was a wet infant. Uh, Most of us are reluctant to change, bordering on terrified, because nobody knows what the unknown is going to be all about. Nobody knows how it's going to impact us. Uh, Nobody knows how we're going to react. Nobody knows how the people around us are going to react. Uh, so it can be daunting at the very least. So you go into this process, and the doctors and the nurses manage expectations very carefully, um, especially at the City of Hope. They do an incredible job of making sure that you know where you are in the process and that you know um, where things are going and what to expect, and and probably are brilliant at under promising and over delivering, uh, so that you can go ahead and control disappointment as much as anyone would be able to. But you start to really worry or wonder or think about the things that you know are going to change, things that more or less you're sure are going to change. You're sure you're going to lose your hair. You're relatively certain anyway. There are certain people that are fortunate enough not to. My dad was bald at 28. I knew I didn't have a chance. So I don't think I was. Um, I don't think my vanity came into play when it came to losing my hair. I was surprised to lose my beard. That was kind of odd, and be left with this little bit of a mustache. Uh, that was a surprise. I was surprised to find out that my DNA was going to change. So you better be careful and you better be nice to me, because if I decide to murder you, they're going to start looking for somebody in Israel, um, because I will share his DNA, from what I understand. I was worried about my tastes changing because they told me that it wasn't unlikely that my tastes in food would change, uh, that I would suddenly enjoy eating foods that I didn't care for before, or vice versa, start avoiding foods that I really liked before. And that was brought home almost immediately. I was having a meal in the hospital one night, and they brought me a hamburger, and and I like mustard on my hamburgers along with ketchup. And I opened the little uh, individual packet of ketchup and gagged, because I couldn't stand the odor. I had to go ahead and literally wrap it in a napkin to throw it out because I couldn't deal with it. There are other things that I was told were going to change as well. Likes and dislikes might change. There might be certain personality um, changes that take place. Uh, all of that's concerning, but the fact of the matter is that if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Once you start the process, it's really kind of irrelevant, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you're going to be left to deal with the consequences. And I think that's where this whole idea of a positive attitude and recognizing that whatever changes take place, you're going to have to adapt, improvise, adapt, overcome. Uh, the other issue is that you keep waiting for this change to happen. Uh, because you don't know when or if it's going to happen. And that's kind of unnerving. Um, but again, realistically, it doesn't matter. Um, and I say that with the deepest humility. It doesn't matter because you've got to focus on the end game, regardless of what happens. You've got to be focused on getting well. You've got to be focused on staying healthy. You've got to be focused on staying out of contaminated areas. Leslie, sitting in the corner of the room, you got to be, focused on keeping your fingers out of your mouth. If you're me, that's really a lot harder than it sounds. Um, if I were a parrot, I'd probably be bald all over it because I'd pick the feathers out. Um, but the fact of the matter is, you can't move through something like this, regardless of what change happens to you, and remain unchanged. I don't see how that's possible. I could be wrong, I suppose, but I'm not sure. I know how. Um, when you contemplate the deeper um, elements of a life well lived, of what people might consider a good life, um, and you recognize that we're all constantly changing, that we're all adapting to the world in which we live, the life that surrounds us, the people that we interact with. Uh, when you recognize that, well, when somebody tells you, when somebody sits across the table from you and says, like that old joke says, the ranger said you're going to die. Um, you can't, it's impossible to go back to where you were. I don't know how it's possible. Maybe somebody can explain it to me, but I don't know how you do that. Um, and then it becomes a matter of how you change, um, moving in a positive direction, how you change recognizing that you've been given this incredible opportunity to to finish what you started, or to start what you've never started. Um, that you have the opportunity to clean up, straighten out, um, the opportunity to make things right, or to get things right, or to figure them out, uh, and make them work for you and for the people around you. And then you realize that the only thing that's really important, going back to this whole issue of community, uh, are the people close to you. The only thing that's critical are the relationships that you share, the interpersonal relationships, how you move through the world peacefully and quietly, and try not to leave a mess. You know, make the debris stream as manageable as possible. And so when you're thinking about things like that, and they're deep thoughts, and you can't really make light of them too often or too much. I think it's the only way you can get through this. The psych eval was a big part of being approved for the transplant process, and a big part of the psych evaluation was tolerating isolation, and recognizing the dangers involved and the risks, and having a reasonable attitude towards all of that stuff. Um, and I've been really fortunate in the respect that I don't see that there are many choices. I think I've been positive about this whole thing through the beginning, and I think it's critically important. And if you're facing some kind of a challenge like this, or even if you're facing the same challenge, it's important to remember that. Um, the statistics are irrefutable. The more positive your attitude, the more clearly you can see a bright, positive future, the more likely it is you're going to come through this relatively unscathed, and by that I mean physically. Um, the mental aspect of it is going to, at least in my case, it's changed me um, in a number of powerful and positive ways, I think. And you know, for all of you that are watching, and for those of you that know me, I'm depending on you to keep me honest throughout the whole ordeal. I make these public pronouncements because once you've made them public, you're kind of you're kind of committed to the process. So that's where we are on this Sunday. Going to the hospital for clinic tomorrow. Going for another bone marrow biopsy on Tuesday. Until we get together again tomorrow. Stay well. Take care. Remember that we care about you deeply, and you know, think about change. Stockbrokers with infants. Um, Seeing the future as clearly as you can, and then reacting accordingly. Um, Embrace it. Embrace what comes next. Don't run from it. Contending against the universe is exhausting, and it rarely works. The universe is not going to bend itself to your will. So when it comes to change, be more like the willow than the oak. All right, over and out. Thank you.